We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, your neighbor over there, a bit bewildered, but he cares.
Welcome to Changing Our World. This is a program where we look at some of the people that are actually out there making changes to our world at this time. And today we have Mary Klug, who is a Marblehead resident and has an interesting story about her experiences with China and the Awakening the Dreamer program in which she's a facilitator. And she has been taking the Awakening the Dreamer program to China in recent months. Welcome, Mary. Welcome to Changing Our World.
Thank you, Bill. I'm happy to be here.
You are a facilitator for the Awakening the Dreamer program. Is that correct? You got started by going to a symposium and becoming a trainer.
I did, and you were the trainer.
Yes, and
yeah.
I remember. I remember it was amazing. Many things I was amazed about when you joined us. And I think the story that we're interested in today is your experience with China and how you got involved in China and how you got excited about taking the symposium to China. So let's start with what the Awakening the Dreamer program is and what inspired you about it.
I think the biggest thing that inspired me about the Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream program was when I saw how many people and organizations are out there changing our world. And I wanted to be a part of that. Our mission is such an awe-inspiring mission to bring forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just presence on our earth, which is an amazing mission. And I was blown away with the realities of what's happening on our earth. I didn't really quite know that it was as dire as it is.
In the Awakening Dreamer program, it's a program that was created by the Pachamama Alliance in response to an indigenous culture requesting that the Pachamama Alliance go back to the modern world and change the dream of the modern world, because the dream of the modern world was creating all the pressure on their rainforest home in the oil extraction in Ecuador. So that was the inspiration for the Pachamama Alliance to create the symposium.
And oil. Can you think of any place that's starting to use oil more and more and more than China?
Yes.
And I had quite a relationship with China since 1983. And so when I became inspired at the symposium, I thought, okay, why not try to take it to China? But I didn't know if it was possible, so I started doing some investigating.
Let's talk about how you connected with China and when your first experience with going to China. As I understand it, you were working for the airline in the 80s.
I was. I actually started in 1965, don't tell anybody. I loved traveling around the world. I loved seeing things. That was one of the things that in my life was the most important thing, was going to new places. And some of the other flight attendants knew about that. I was sitting on the jump seat one day, and one of my fellow flight attendants said, "Mary, get to China before it changes too much." Oh my heavens, changing too much is what it's done. It looked like Mars. Well, it didn't look like Mars, but it felt like going to Mars back in 1983. Now, many, many places feel just like the United States. It's, it's changed tremendously. But back in 83, I went ahead and went there, and my whole life just took a turn. It just seemed like China, for some reason, drew me in for numerous reasons.
You got connected to China without knowing the language, without getting in, you just showed up.
Well, that was part of the challenge. My international guide became a good friend of mine, and she's still a friend of mine all these years later. And she helped me at the beginning. At the beginning in the early 80s, it was a little bit clandestine. We would meet in the zoo, and we would It was really pretty interesting. And I think that was part of the pull is that it was something really different from anything that I felt challenging. China was a challenge.
And your first experience inspired you to connect Americans with the Chinese and Chinese with Americans.
Yes,
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I wound up being a tour guide for the U.S.-China People's Friendship Association. And their mission, of course, is to have friendship between the nations, with the idea that, well, let's be honest, if we were to go to war, it would be much, much more difficult to kill a bunch of people that we knew than people that we didn't know. So that was the mission, get to know each other. And that was really fun, leading tours to China. I really, really enjoyed it. Friendship tours.
And then after that, I understand you started teaching as English as a second language in Chinese universities or high schools?
Yes, universities. Delta had a 3-year program where we were downsizing back in the 90s. And so I decided to take them up on that offer, and I went over there and I taught. The important part of that is that I started to build a network of people that were my friends.
Well, you were doing the tour guiding.
During the tour guiding and also during being a teacher.
Being a teacher, making more connections to people.
In Hangzhou.
And learning to respect the traditions of the Chinese.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So now you slowed down your teaching a little bit in China, and you went to a symposium to see the Awakening the Dreamer Symposium. And as I understand it, you were working on writing a book, and and that was starting to slow down. So the symposium inspired you in many ways, as I understand it.
Yeah, I was slowed down on my memoir, and I saw the symposium, and I thought, another thing I can do in China, another purpose, another reason to go to China. So the first thing I had to do was become a facilitator. So several months after and then I became a facilitator, and then I decided, well, who do I know in China? Okay, I got in touch with a woman that is a part of the programs for teachers, English teachers, and I asked her if she had any need for a little training, and it turned into a 2-day training. So I took a 3 to 4 hour symposium and turned it into a teaching tool for teachers on how to teach content. And so the content was the environment.
Very good.
Yeah,
very
so
good.
it was an amazing 2 days.
So the message in the symposium became the content for English as a second language. And you went over there and facilitated a teaching exercise for teachers that teach English as a second language at the university level. That's fantastic. Yeah. And the symposium was an attempt. Well, you were inspired by the symposium, and that inspiration, you took that excitement and as inspiration to China and started to teach other people about the symposium.
Yeah.
So now this leads to an amazing journey for you. And I can remember when you were talking to me how sometimes you would get discouraged because the outcome wasn't what you expected. After a long trip to China, you came back and said, oh my gosh, I don't think we're doing anything over there. It's difficult. But tell us a little bit about how you planted seeds and what's happened now.
Well, I think that time that I was the most discouraged was when I went over, because I thought they were going to have this whole big tour ready for me. And I got over there and there was nothing. And yet, I met with some people, and within a week, I had, I think, 4 or 5 symposiums. And in those symposiums, they led to other symposiums. And the biggest thing was getting to a place called Solar Valley. I think you can see the big Solar Valley Hotel there. Solar Valley is a really, really key part of what happened, because I met the key person who is helping me now. His name is William Wu. William Wu is a young man who takes chances. And he was a part of a symposium that I wound up leading for over 500 people in Solar Valley. That's another whole story, how we got to Solar Valley. Solar Valley happened because of a man called Huang Ming. And Huang Ming, as a younger man, when he had his baby girl, and he was in oil at the time, looked at his baby and thought, what am I doing? And he decided to go into solar energy. Since then, he's become a billionaire, but he's doing things for the country. And he has connections with the government, which is so important for us when we're doing things in China, because we want to be a part of what the government is pushing its people to do.
Yes, I remember you being very concerned about politically being correct with the message, because the Awakening the Dreamer can be challenging in terms of what we're trying to do is wake people up to change the consciousness of our consumer society
Right.
in the United States. Now we've got China that's an emerging consumer society, so the same message now has to be delivered politically correct. So
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
had to make some changes to the symposium in order to take it over there.
Yeah, we're dealing with a different type of government, a government that can get things done. And when it comes to solar, you can see some of the, I was on the top rooftop in Kunming and looked down and there's just solar panels all over the place. So if they decide they want to do something, they'll do it.
Right.
But on the other hand, one of the problems I've found is that the people have the tendency to say, oh, it's the government's responsibility. So say the government tells them they can only drive in Beijing, where the pollution is so bad, you can only drive your car. They have the system where the last digit of the license plate tells them the day that they cannot drive their car. To cut down on the traffic and the pollution.
Right.
And yet I just found out this last time when I was over there that people cheat and they go ahead and drive, and the ticket it doesn't matter. The cost of the ticket is
Right.
worth them driving. And so now I'm beginning to really learn some of the things that we can say to the people at the Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream Symposium. Like, it really makes sense for you to pay attention to what the government is telling you to do.
Because the symposium's giving a reason why the law's in effect.
Exactly.
People
Exactly.
are told to obey a law that they
Yeah.
don't understand.
Yeah.
The shifting consciousness is getting people aware.
Yeah.
So Wang Ming, is that
Huang Ming.
is the billionaire. I wonder if he's ever been introduced to the Koch brothers. It would be interesting to
That
see.
would be very
Interesting to see if there's a
wouldn't it?
dialogue that could happen
Yeah.
between them, because
would
it
be.
sounds like the consciousness shift happened with the birth of his daughter.
Yes, it definitely did.
And maybe some of our fossil fuel billionaires should take a lesson from Wang
Yeah.
Ming.
Yeah.
So through your efforts, your efforts, starting with teaching the university professors of English as a second language through using the symposium, you've been able to meet different people all the way up now to having a connection with Wang Ming
Yeah.
and Solar Valley,
Yeah.
and the symposium starting to become a sort of a national thing over there, it sounds like.
Well, we are definitely at the beginning of what could really be a growth of understanding in China, and they need it. And it didn't hurt that President Xi and President Obama just had the agreement, and that will help a lot, because when you go to China, a lot of times the pollution is so bad people are walking around with masks on. And the people are really beginning to really get it because they're living it. They're living it in a way much more than we are.
Right.
I think now is the time for those seeds that have been planted to really start to flower and to blossom.
Yeah,
That's how I feel.
I also believe that the Chinese people are a lot closer to a different lifestyle. I mean, we've been in the consumer society in economy for many, many years. But they're just a couple generations into
Right.
this, so that
Right.
it's my belief. It seems to me that this this symposium can have an impact on people that aren't that far away from a different lifestyle, because the symposium's about a changing lifestyle in order to create a more balanced economy or ecological system for the earth. So now you're working with people in Solar Valley. The symposium you delivered to 500 entrepreneurs in Solar Valley came about because of a connection with
DC Cordova.
DC Cordova.
Yeah, DC Cordova is also a facilitator for the Pachamama Alliance, although she's gone in a different direction. She has developed these entrepreneurial trainings that are about 8 days long. She gives a lot of them in Solar Valley, but other places. And she uses the principles of the ATD in encouraging the people who are taking her trainings, her entrepreneurial trainings, to make money ethically.
Yes.
To put it really simply.
And it can be done.
And it can be done. Huang Ming is a really good example. She's quite a woman. The first time I met her, I went over, there's a gentleman in Hong Kong who's actually from New Zealand, and he is a facilitator, and he lives on this little island. Well, not little island, actually, the island where the Hong Kong airport is, but it is it doesn't look much like what you imagine Hong Kong with all. There's actually cows strolling around underneath his balcony. So I love going there. I got a hold of Marin, and Marin and I flew over to Hong Kong. Then Marin spent a couple days, and then went up to Shenzhen, which was about an hour and a half away by train, and had a person-to-person meeting with DC Cordova. And in that meeting, that's how we wound up having that symposium for almost 600 people.
So the symposium was part of her 6-day training.
Well, you know what it was?
Entrepreneur leaders in China. Right?
Actually, what it was a reunion of 600 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a reunion of a bunch of previous entrepreneurial trainings, and they periodically would have these, and so it was all these different people coming back for 2 days, and she had us do a symposium.
Mary, I love your persistence and your energy, because I know most of us would just have said, given it one try and said, well, I've done my best, and you keep going back, and it's really an inspiration for me and for the rest of us that are facilitators in this community here on the North Shore. So I'm delighted that you're here talking about what you're doing in China, and I know you're going to be going back, right?
Oh, of course, yes. We're probably going back in March. Right now, the big thing that's happening with the people that we've got collected together, the Hong Kong people and the Huan Ming people and all of these people, we're putting together the latest version of the symposium, the 3.0, and having Chinese translations, and so we're going ahead. And my biggest dream is to have a training of the people that have attended the ATD over there, that they will be trained, and then we can start having it really
as facilitators. This is very exciting. I am inspired. I have been inspired by your story and what you've been able to do, especially with the Awakening the Dreamer program, and how much energy you put into it, but also the results that you've gotten out of doing this work. And I think it's because of your passion and your excitement about China and your excitement about the Awakening the Dreamer program. It did inspire you. I can remember how you were excited about it, and you came to the training, and I remember you at the training. And then, after Mary got trained, I didn't hear from her for 6 months, and she called me and she says, I need your help. I want to take this symposium to China. And I said, what? And I was very excited about it. When Mary called me and said she was taking the symposium to China, I went over and we spent 4 or 5 hours working on editing the videos that the symposium has so that she could take it over to China. And then as we were leaving, we were outside talking, and I was talking to Mary, and I noticed the butterfly had landed on her shoulder, and she wasn't aware of it. And you can explain after that what happened.
Well, Bill said, Mary, there's a butterfly on your shoulder. Now, what's interesting about that is that we had just been talking about butterflies and how that's a new symbol for me, and how I love butterflies because of the concept of transformation. And so I was amazed that he said that you said that there was a butterfly on my shoulder. So I don't know why, but instinctively I put my finger up. I really don't know why. And that butterfly moved from my shoulder to my finger. And I remember I'd never had that happen before. And I talked to the butterfly for about a minute. And it was like a miracle. I don't even know how to explain it, because I was on my way to China to do something really important, and this seemed like it was a sign that it was all going to happen, that it was going to work. It wasn't necessarily going to work in my time or my way, but it was going to happen.
Yes.
And when the butterfly flew away, I said, Bill, that was special, wasn't it?
I was in awe completely. It was amazing. It was an omen for transformation that we couldn't have scripted or
exactly.
It was just a perfect thing to have.
I'm getting chills. I remember.
So it was wonderful.
And I wear the butterfly now often as a reminder.
Yeah, and it was a monarch butterfly.
And
too.
It was a monarch butterfly. So, yeah.
So we worked together to put together a video that would be appropriate for China.
We did.
And you took off, and it's a couple years later, and it's so exciting what you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we were able to have this talk, and I want to talk to the people watching now. If you are inspired by anything, you need to take the example of Mary, not to get discouraged, and just put it out there and plant the seeds, because you never know when those blossoms will pop up or where those blossoms will pop up. And we've got blossoms in China popping up now because of what Mary has been able to do. She's an exciting and interesting person to have in our community, and she's got huge courage to be able to do the things that she's done, and it's within all of us to be able to do that.
So I think we're blessed, and I think the world is going to make it, and I feel positive, but I do know we need to do the work.
Right. It's not going to happen without
Exactly.
a shift in consciousness, and doing the work and putting it out there and letting go of the results is the best way to do this. And we found the best way to do it, because you don't really know what's going to happen, and you can let go of it. You don't have to control the results, and Mary's a perfect example of that. The seeds that have been planted now showing up in China in ways that are amazing. And I have to believe that the energy that created the agreement between Obama and President Xi of China this month has in little part about the energy and the consciousness shift that Mary took to China. I think that energy and that consciousness is really an important part of what's starting to happen in our world today. Mary, thank you so much for being with us. This has been very exciting, and I'm so delighted that you've been able to do all the things that you've done. You're an inspiration for all of us.
Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Cause an idea, whose time has come, cannot be stopped by anyone. Plant your seeds in fertile ground. There ain't nothing gonna keep it down. Oh, we can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land.